Hey, you're listening to Cut for Time on the Embrace Church podcast. This is Jason. So happy that you're listening to Cut for Time today. This is a podcast where we sit down with our speaker that spoke on this past message this past Sunday, and we just get to sit down with them, chat about what was maybe cut for time from their message, what they didn't have time to go into, because we only give our speakers about 20, 22, maybe 25 minutes on a really long day to give the message, give the word of God, give something God has given to them. And sometimes that is just not enough time. And no matter how awesome it was, there's always something more that we didn't get to touch on, and that's what this podcast is for. So this past Sunday, we continued week 2 of our brand new series called This Letter Is For You. It's been we had an awesome start to the series last week with Austin Walker. You can hear that message here on the podcast, or even we did a Cut for Time with him, which was hilarious and fun. But the series is where we're walking through the book of Colossians. The book of Colossians is a book of letters that a guy named Paul wrote, and so we're looking at each chapter each week. We're trying to underline things that grab our attention, put a question mark by anything that we don't understand, and star the main takeaway or the application of the section. So to jump into things today, Brian gave week 2 of the message this past Sunday, and that's who we have on the show here today. Hey, Brian.
Oh, hey. Jason Smith, how are you, man?
Good. So how long has it been since you did a Cut for Time already? This is your second round of Cut for Time.
I'm pretty excited about it. It's been over a month, I think. Probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks.
How has your life changed since the first one?
It's become, since that first Cut for Time to today, my life is absolutely the same. There's been nothing that has changed. My kids treat me the same.
Sure.
My wife treats me the same. People around the office weren't even sure I was on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
And but other than that, it's been totally different.
Oh, no. Yep. No, that's good. That's the answer I was looking for.
I thought so.
Yeah, no, my life has done that as well, so we got to figure something else out. No,
we need to start something new.
It's not about us. Probably the biggest thing I've had people say to me is the Bonnie and Clyde comment we made on the last time you were on here.
You made, and I responded to.
We were both part of the podcast, so it's a we thing at that point.
Yeah, so I legitimately, when you asked me to be on this podcast, I thought this was for the new Bonnie and Clyde podcast.
Yeah,
still Cut for Time.
Bonnie and Clyde. So Brian and I, if you don't know, we just have an ongoing relationship going on. He started here, probably 9 or 10 months ago, 11 months ago.
Yeah.
Man, almost a year. And I've been on staff here at Embrace for a couple years now. And ever since he started, we're just, the Bonnie and Clyde comment came from us just... Our comedy just meshes in a really awkward way for people around.
It just fits. Very few people understand it or think it's funny.
Yeah, no.
But we think it's amazing.
I think it's hilarious.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, did we just say hilarious at the same time?
Holy crap.
My gosh.
Did we just become best friends?
Oh my gosh. In a room by ourselves? Doing this podcast.
Focus.
Man, focus. Yeah, focus. So I say that to say we always just have running, if we were to have a podcast show, we have a running list of podcast names. One of them is Bed, Bath, and Brian. So we go
Bed, Bath, and Jason.
Yeah, it actually could be both, and we just switch it in and out. But the idea of that one was, and I'm going to get off on a tangent that no one cares about.
It's going to be great.
But that we do the podcast inside of Bed, Bath, and Beyond all the time. So you kind of hear the background noise.
Yeah, and maybe a different one every time.
Yeah, different. Hey, we're in Oklahoma.
Didn't know they had them in Okinawa.
Man,
who knew?
If you guys could already tell, we're in the famous,
Bed Bath and Beyond on Times Square.
Yep.
It's got to be one of them.
Oh man, that'd be sweet.
Amazing. That'd be amazing.
But anyway, I digress. Let's not talk anymore about our podcast ideas, but focus in on what we have today. So the message you gave this past week was week 2 of our series, and here in a minute we'll dive into what that message was about. But at first, I know at the beginning of your message this Sunday, if anybody's listened, you talked about how you work out.
Totally work out.
And the passion you have for working out is just there.
There's a certain kind of passion with me exercising that can only come from people who hate exercising. And so my passion for exercising is I like the benefits.
Yep.
But I hate to exercise.
Yeah, and you said that in your message.
Yep.
And so I wanted to challenge you here today.
Okay.
I was like, cool, now I know a fitness, exercise, passionate guy, expert that I can ping these things off of. I wanted to throw you some workout terms.
Got it.
Just like some standard, and these are legitimate workout terms in the workout community. Yeah. And then I want you, without knowing the definite, I want you to just tell me what you think that is.
Okay. So like these are workout terms that just come from the industry.
That
I'm pretty a big part of.
Yeah, you're familiar with already. So this might be really boring for people just because you're going to know the technical things already. Yeah. But I'll throw them your way. All right, you ready?
Okay, first one.
Okay. The first term I want you to define and tell me what this is bonking.
Oh, bonking. Yeah, I've done that for a while. Bonking's where you use a kettlebell and you swing it between your legs up over your head and you try not to bonk anybody, but it's just going to happen. That's bonking. And it really works out your deltoids, I think is the muscle.
Yeah, so that was wrong. When you workouts. Okay, so bonking. Here, let's get serious here. Bonking is when your workout suddenly feels especially hard because your body has run out of glycogen stores.
You know what?
Also known as hitting a wall.
My glycogen stores have been legitimately low lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I've been bonking.
You looked more yellow.
More than I usually.
All right, here we go. Here's another one. DOMS. Yeah, DOMS I think is a CrossFit thing where DOMS is where, you've seen those things where they jump like on tables or thing where they go from a standing position, they jump really high onto a table. Yes.
DOMS is where you go from a standing position and jump onto something that's moving like a goat on a table.
Yeah. Because that would be more helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to give you a little bit more flexibility.
Yep,
your eye-foot coordination is going to come into play there.
Okay. So the actual meaning of that one is an ominous-sounding acronym for delayed onset muscle soreness. Oh. So you've probably felt DOMS before.
Yeah, no, I've got DOMS right now.
That was wrong. Okay, you're 0 for 2.
I haven't exercised for a while, and I've still got DOMS.
All right, I think I'll give you one more. I have a whole list here, and if you're wondering what I'm referencing, it's openfit.com.
Okay,
I have no idea.
I thought these were like legitimate exercises, but you're mostly just telling me how my body hurts afterwards.
Yeah, no, because I was trying to pick something that was more relevant to you.
Next one. Next one.
All right, here we go. Let's see. Oh man, that one's really good. Okay, how about this? Junk miles. I actually did 4.5 junk miles 2 days ago. Yeah, what was that?
I walked 4.5 miles while eating ice cream.
Okay, so it's the exercise while eating junk food. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I go to like dairy-based junk food.
Okay.
And so my junk miles generally, you get a little phlegmy too with all the dairy.
I can imagine.
But junk miles, I like them. They're my personal favorite. Really? I do tend to get some DOMS afterwards.
Sure. As one would. No, so that one's wrong too. 0 for 3. Surprisingly, it's a somewhat controversial running term, so I'll give you that. I mean, there's controversy around it that can be used to describe miles ran at a slow, easy pace. So again, something
literally every mile I've ever ran is a junk mile.
They were all relevant to you, and I thought that was important.
Did I tell you I ran a half marathon?
Dude, I was at your half marathon.
13.1 junk miles. That's absolutely
was that the name of the marathon?
I didn't know until now, but yeah. All right.
No, that's good. Well, hey, thanks for answering those. Yeah. I hope that was beneficial to anyone.
Beneficial to no one.
No. So week 2 of the series, you open it up with talking about running, and maybe you can talk about that a little bit, what that meant. But what was your message about this past Sunday that we're talking about today?
Yeah, so as we were in this series talking about Paul's letters to the Colossians, the big point behind the whole thing is that we want to give people an opportunity to feel confident opening up their Bible. And so just giving them some tools to read it on their own. And then we just kind of do that as speakers. We look at the chapter that we're speaking on and, hey, what jumped out to us in that chapter? So to me, I was in Colossians 2. What jumped out to me was a couple verses 6 and 7. Where Paul's talking about just as you accepted Christ Jesus as your Lord. So I talked about, hey, we've got to accept the offer. There's actually something that Jesus is offering us there. And then he talks about going deeper, letting your roots grow down deep into him, into Jesus. And so the second point was to just kind of jump in. What does it mean once you've accepted that offer? How do you let your roots grow down deep into him? What does that look like? Can you simply just answer a question like, hey, do you believe in Jesus? And say yes. And does that mean you're a Christian?
Yeah.
So that was kind of high level stuff for what it was.
What was, because you went into a portion of the message where you gave some background on Colossae and and things like that. Tell me a little bit about that, and like, was there more to that history? Or as I was listening to it, I was like, man, this is just interesting.
So Colossae is the ancient town that the book is called Colossians, so that's the people that lived in Colossae.
Gotcha.
And the background behind Colossae was, the interesting thing was, 100 BC, 100 years before Jesus was born, it was kind of a jump in town. Like, a lot of things were happening. It was a pretty busy business center.
Like a Minnesota.
Minneapolis, Minnesota. There you go. Minneapolis. Minnesota's a state. Right.
like Oklahoma.
When I think of Colossae, I think of probably like a southern state in the United States.
Yep. Tennessee.
Tennessee. No, so like, it was this city that had a lot going for it. A lot of business was coming through. It was on a trade route, so there was people in the Roman Empire traveling through it anyway.
Trade and stuff.
But then they became well known for one particular item called Colosseum.
So when you said that, I first thought of like Wolverine from X-Men.
Right. Yeah.
Like, is that like a
I was
metal?
pretty proud that I could actually say it. I'm not sure I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
But we're going to go with
Colosseum? Colosseum.
Anyway.
Cinnamon.
So it's made out of wool. It's a garment or a piece of fabric that was dyed a deep red, and it was considered a luxury item. So people would use it, clothing in their homes, that type of thing. But the only place they could get it was in Colossae.
Oh yeah.
And so for a while, Colossae was pretty happening. I mean, they had a lot going for it. But like I said in the message, Colossae, when people would get there, they'd have to stay there, they'd have to eat there. So the entire economy was built on it. The stuff that I left out about Colossae was by 400 AD. 400 years after Jesus was born, Colossae no longer existed.
Whoa.
And part of it was because competition had happened. They went through an economic downturn, but there was also 2 major earthquakes that hit Colossae, and each time they rebuilt the city, it was rebuilt a little less luxurious.
Wow. Yeah.
And in fact, scholars think that Paul wrote this letter around 60, and so the second earthquake hit right around that time. So we're not sure. Wow. Did he write to them right after that second earthquake?
Oh,
which
kind of on that downfall.
Yeah, which would kind of fit with what he was seeing going on there. So maybe would have spurred him to write that letter.
Whoa.
So that's a little more about Colossae.
Whoa, that's interesting.
There you go.
Colosseum. I'll get it.
You're gonna.
Okay, so you were talking about. I want to go back to the image of you exercising just because it's hilarious. And
it is hilarious.
But you brought. This was a segue that was such a great beginning to the message, and it even tied in through the whole thing of like, okay, so I exercise, but I eat terrible, and so I can answer the question of, yes, do you exercise? But I can't. You went on to say like, but I can't answer the question of, am I fit? Because you're not fit.
Right.
You exercise.
Yeah, I could say, I exercise, but that doesn't mean I'm fit.
Yeah.
Like, I can exercise, but I eat horribly.
Yeah.
And so do I actually get the benefits from being somebody who exercises? Not really. Maybe I do a little bit that I don't know about.
Were you a sports guy in college?
I was. I played baseball in college.
What?
I played basketball and baseball in high school. And so, but baseball, I mean,
that's hardly a sport.
You can be 400 pounds. I was a first baseman. I was left-handed and
You were a 400-pound baseman?
You could be. I was a 400-pound first baseman.
I was like, I'm trying to picture this large.
I don't understand talking sports with you because I'm pretty sure, like,
you know what it is.
I could say anything and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that has to do with sports."
Yeah, left field, man. Love it.
Yeah, in football, it's great.
It's no, I think the need to talk sports comes from my lack of it in my life, maybe. And so I just feel like, man, I can just freely talk
you can
about
just throw it out there.
I don't know how science works, but I talk about the trees.
So the segue, going back to the segue. So the segue from that was, sometimes we can answer a question correctly. Like, hey, do you work out? I can answer that correctly and say yes. But it does me no good. And so similarly, can you answer the question, do you believe in Jesus, or am I a Christian?
Yeah.
And say yes, but it actually does you no good.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like, I mean, I can only speak for myself, maybe, and I think you mentioned this too, but like, I've been asked that question, and my answer has been somewhat that, like, I believe in Jesus. I follow Jesus. Like, but there's nothing else there, and I don't know where that comes from.
Well, and I think even you just said it right there. I believe in Jesus. I follow Jesus. I think that's the dichotomy there of, okay, I believe there was a guy named Jesus. I believe that he probably went to the cross and died for a reason that maybe I understand or maybe I don't.
Yeah.
But do I actually follow Jesus? Do I actually do what he says? Do I actually
pursue a relationship? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so even when it's hard, is that a thing? And I think that's for those of us who grew up going to church or have been in, quote, a religious family or a religious community. Yeah. It can just be part of our social upbringing. Like, totally. Of course I went to church. Of course I'm a Christian. That's just what I do. And it's almost more like this is the wrong word, but like, it's almost more of like your ethnic background than it is an actual pursuit of a relationship. Like, my ethnic background is Danish. If I go to Denmark, that's my homeland. Like, my background is Christianity just because I went to church all my life, but it doesn't necessarily mean I know anything about what it means to follow Jesus.
Or that it's in your heart even. Right. Yeah, that relationship.
Right.
So with your message, and we'll kind of even get into, I love the story you shared at the end, and I know this message came from a really personal place for you, so I wanted to dive into that even a bit. Yeah. But before we get there, what was during the prep of your message like? And we've mentioned it before on this podcast. There's a lot of a team of pastors and leaders that go into even just helping craft and see this message happen on a Sunday. But with your prep and prayer over this message, was there anything that you had to leave out that had to, man, I can't even go down that rabbit trail. I can't even go down that because that's not the main point, but maybe we can talk about it here.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of things that were separate from what I talked about, but there was so much more that I wanted to add to. Yeah. So in the going deeper part, or deeper still part, like I really wanted to bring up just a couple instances of people who followed Jesus for a very, very long time, and yet just had some more instances of what God is teaching them that's new. And so I reached out to a friend of mine by the name of Byron Emmert, who's been following Jesus for, what did he say, 54 years or something like that. And I just said, hey, what is new that God's been teaching you today that, is a new thought to you?
Did he have some things?
Yeah. And so his response was, which I thought was unbelievable for somebody who's followed Jesus for 54 years. And for my money has been in the last 10 years of my life has been as impactful as a mentor and as just somebody who I really look at it, man, I want to pursue Jesus like he does. Yeah. The one thing he said was, I'm learning, and I've learned just recently that I can't rely on how good my relationship was and how well I was pursuing Jesus a year ago or a month ago or even last week. That has no effect on the joy that I find in him today. Whoa. Or what he goes, it is an absolute daily thing. And so I might have been in a really great, sweet season, intimate season with God a month ago. That actually has no effect on me today and how I'm walking. Yeah. And he goes, it's new every day. And he goes, after 54 years, like I'm finally learning that.
Can you imagine? I'm finally learning that.
Right. How crazy is that?
I mean, I don't know when life ends. I haven't looked up the latest stats.
Right. I don't know.
I'm kidding. That's a terrible joke. Because if he hears this, he's like, who's that Jason guy?
I won't let him listen to this.
Okay, good. I mean, and you're getting there.
Totally. We're going to get to that.
Cool. No, that's amazing. Was there anything else that was cut that was around
the other part was, and I was talking with some people after one of the services on Sunday about this of, what does it look like for those of us who, what does it tangibly look like to follow Jesus? Oh, yeah. And so kind of the imagery that I used towards the end of that message was talking about just an instance with my kids of not letting them play in the street.
And more because you're an adult.
Yeah. And so those are kind of heady things like, those are things that maybe help me think differently.
Now I'm open to listen.
Yeah. So what does it tangibly look like to actually go deeper still? And so on a random Tuesday during the week, am I open to, if God's nudging me to have a conversation with somebody?
Yeah.
Am I open to going serving somebody who they're not going to be able to repay me at all? I think our what's the word, like our experience following Jesus is probably only as good as the last time we said yes to him.
Oh man.
Because every time there's a nudge from the Holy Spirit or there's a nudge from God to do something and we say no, I think that creates a gap in our walk with him. But the more that we say yes, and I am not saying by any means I am good at that.
Yeah, sure.
Because I say no probably more to that nudge than I should.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not probably. I absolutely
No,
do.
totally. I mean, I don't, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're good.
Yeah.
So maybe you should continue talking about this point. But how do we just start saying yes to that more often? How do we
understand that prompting? Or like, there's so much that I can even think now. I'm like, I've had moments where I've had that nudging to probably go deeper still, like you're talking about. Am I like, because it's a prompting, it's a feeling, it's a notion, and but then I fight in my head like, no, like that person begging for money on the side of the street, like I felt a nudge to maybe go talk or go give something, but no, I fight that because of this and this.
I've got my kids with me here, or I've got
was
this
that a
going
nudge,
on
or
tonight.
do I just feel bad?
Yeah, right. Did I just get a feeling for some other reason?
What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is, I think it's nuanced is a terrible word. I hate that word, but I'm going to use it. Like, it's nuanced in the sense of we have to say yes, but yet there's got to be boundaries at some point where we're not just doing because we think that is earning the favor of God.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so, should we invite that family over who's new in the neighborhood? The answer is yes to that question. Yeah, absolutely. What's bad about, what could go wrong with welcoming somebody to the neighborhood or inviting somebody to church? Like, of course we should be saying yes to those things. Yeah. But am I doing like 50 of those things every day and I literally have no boundaries? There's got to be some boundaries set there so that we're still caring well for our own soul and our own family and that type of thing. But for me, I will absolutely tell you, I fall on the side of probably being too lazy and saying, I'm going to take the easy way out here than doing what I think I know God's prompting me to do here. So.
Was there any other thoughts to that of like, so when you were having that conversation after service, somebody of how do we actually do it? Was there any other thoughts of like practically how that looks?
Yeah. I mean, I think the hard thing for Christians that, or people that are following Jesus that feel like in their heart they're living that out. Like they're the one thing for a follower like that is you got to have grace for the new believer and somebody who's on their own journey. Like we're all at different points in our walk with Christ, and so. Just because you're there and you're at a spot where you're sacrificially giving or you're actually saying yes to the prompting of God, don't let that just be your walk.
Yeah.
Don't be burdened if somebody else is not there yet.
Yeah.
But can you encourage? Absolutely. Can you come alongside? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, like, what does it look like? I think it simply looks like us acting out our faith. Are we talking to the person on the side of the road?
Yeah.
Are we reaching out to somebody who we know is in need? They're in the hospital. They're going through a struggle. That type of thing. So.
Yeah. Are we leading, like, even I think of like, am I walking back home from like work or even a stressful day into my home with like joy and leadership and like helping with, like just even those living, when you said deeper still in your message, something like, I've never been a person to like pick a word for my year, or something. But I did this year. I was like, cool. And I just felt it strongly. Healthy. Well, it's 2 words. Darn it. I didn't pick. I've still never been a one to pick a word for my year. It's been, okay. So it's 3 words. No, healthy habits. And so that was just really heavy on me. And not even that, but the small things that no one sees that I'm doing those.
Right.
And when you say deeper still, the first thing that came to mind was like, am I being deeper still when nobody's looking, when no one's around? Like, am I like, even just like throwing up like my how I feel to God, whether good or bad, or how I feel about him. Or we talked to Travis Waltner a couple podcasts ago about like, man, I don't even feel like worshiping right now, or let God know that, like he understands. So like giving that to him, am I trying to seek him more in that relationship privately? And so when you say deeper still, grow your roots, I think a lot of that, at least for me, shows behind the scenes.
There's an integrity piece to that for sure, where honestly, I think what you're getting at there is something that a skeptical world hates about Christians, which is, they're going to, or a skeptical world thinks that Christians do more, which is, they look really good on the outside. They look like they've got it all together. They look like they're doing the right thing, but I'll bet in the background, they're not actually like that.
Oh,
and
sure.
For you to be digging into, I'm going to follow Jesus when nobody's looking. Man, what if we all did that? Like, what if our walk with Jesus was just something that when nobody was around, we were pushing as hard towards Jesus then as we are when we're talking from the platform on a Sunday.
And that's really what it's all about too.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the Adam has a really good thing that he says to our staff here, and it's like I think it goes going deeper is simply taking the next step, like with Jesus. So it's like, man, what's that next step in your behind the scenes moment? What is that next step? What is that prompt? Maybe it is a on stage speaking because you've never done it, or maybe you're giving a message so you feel that's your next step. But yeah, I think that's a huge thing. And I still, like you even said, you're like, not probably, I definitely don't do that every day. That's a hard thing for me still every day. But then it's like also, man, I didn't read my Bible today because it's part of my integrity behind the scenes checklist. That's not what I should feel bad about. Right. Like, it's like that deeper still concept is the relationship and the reading my word and praying and stuff. Those are all things that get me to that deeper place, that get me to a relationship with him. But so does praying with my wife, or, reading a book to my kids before they go to bed and praying with them before they go to sleep, or helping them through something. So,
I mean, I think there's so many, no matter what we do, in our walk with Jesus, the enemy is going to try to pervert it, even if we're doing the right things. And so, that's like, good. Even just you saying like, it shouldn't be that I'm annoyed that I didn't check off my list that I should read my Bible today. Like, that should actually be, I'm more annoyed that I just didn't have time with my Creator. Like, I just didn't have time to, that's like, good. I want to be in relationship. And so, but like, that discipline of being in the Bible every day is really, really good.
Yes, that's so true.
Even that can become just a religious thing that we do. A quote, just
it's like, cool, both sides are dangerous.
Stay right in the middle. Literally right in the middle.
Don't do too much.
Just take it easy. I mean, it's again, it's all about the relationship.
No, I love that. So to that deeper still point, that was your second point. Your first point was accept the offer. And we have, like, the analogy you gave there was, the vaccine for yellow fever. So I feel good right now that we're sitting in a room together that I won't get yellow fever from you.
You won't get it from me.
I've never had the vaccine.
Okay. So the other people in here who haven't gotten yellow fever yet could get it from you.
Yes, absolutely. I could get it from myself. Who knows? But but you made that analogy of you got a yellow fever shot, and there's yellow fever in a yellow fever vaccine. To make the point that we have just enough of Jesus. We've sometimes been vaccinated with Jesus to the point where it keeps us from getting Jesus. And I thought that point was awesome. You talked about a canyon, but then your second point to bring it home was go deeper still. And kind of what got me there, and I kind of joked with you on Sunday, probably at an inappropriate time, but right when you came off stage, I was like, man, our photographer got you crying on stage. I was like, what was up with that? Like, no sensitivity, but I heard it and it was powerful.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was great.
It really was. Really, do you want to, what was that emotion about? And like, I know some of your story factors into what that was.
I legitimately don't get emotional really ever. Like, that's
you're a man.
not, I'm a guy, so I don't, because I shouldn't. Right? But the one thing that gets me emotional are my kids and my wife, like my family. Like I think it's okay for me to walk through struggle, because I just, I
can handle it.
I can figure I can handle it, and I kind of signed up for it usually. I think it's just, but to see my kids struggling or my family struggling, like, that's where I get emotional. And so So that story in the message was simply, I was just being honest with, hey, here's been my argument with God over the last 18 months. 18 months ago, God started working on my heart about, hey, there's this opportunity in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
Let's maybe start taking a look at that. And the argument, it was really, God, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to go to Sioux Falls. I don't want to move my family. We love our home.
Yeah.
We have we've got
You're
great
part of
friends.
a great church, great friends, family.
Community, whether it's work, school, community, like we love it. And it's been home for 20 years.
Wow.
And so I don't want to uproot our kids, all that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about that, like that can get me emotional pretty quick, because if I've struggled over the last year since we've met, or since we've left, like I signed up for it.
Yeah.
But for my kids to be struggling,
they didn't sign up for it.
Yeah, they didn't. Like Dad got to make the final decision.
Yeah.
Right. And if Andrea's struggling, of course I didn't just say, hey, we're moving. Like Andrew and I talked about it, of course.
Yeah, totally.
But like ultimately I was the one pushing it. I was the one driving for it. And so the last year has been good in many ways, but it's been really, really hard in many ways too, since we've moved. And so that's where that emotion came from. And I was just trying to say, even if we as Christians really believe what we say we believe, that, okay, God's the God of the universe. He's got our best interests at heart.
Yep.
He's got the power to raise a dead man to life. If we believe those things, and that he's got something better for us, then I actually don't have the right to tell him no when he asks me to do something that's really hard. And so over the last year, that's been a really hard decision for us, to make the decision to move. And then once we've moved, like legitimately, there have been times where we're just like, has this been the right decision?
Yeah, questioning.
And walking through that over the last year.
I met this guy named Jason, and he's hilarious, but I don't know.
He's hilarious, but can I deal with him for an extended period of time? You know, like
literally after we record, we don't see each other for a week.
Right. Small snippets in a podcast are okay, but daily, come on. And so, how do you walk through that?
Yeah. And well, that's kind of the question I was thinking of, like, how have you found yourself with even Andrea, your wife, or like, how have you guys been able to, is it that advice of like, we just take it daily and trust God, or like, what's been a practical piece of that for you that's been like, because you're obviously still feeling the nudging of, nope, God has like deeper still for you, Brian. But how have you tried to cope with that? Or not cope, but
it's different for all four of us. It's been different. Our experiences have been different. Each of us have transitioned at a faster or slower pace than the others.
Oh, sure.
Because none of that is the same. But practically, like every morning I get up and Andrea's in the Word. She's walking in the Word. She's functionally reached out, or tangibly reached out to people to, have a Bible study with some gals. And so like, she's just been active.
Oh, good.
And trying to create community and doing those things, which has made it easier. Still not easy, but easier. For me, it's very much a thought process of, okay, Brian, do you actually believe what you tell other people to believe? Okay. Do you actually believe that God's going to bring you guys through this, that God actually cares for your kids more than you care for them, that Martin and Naomi are going to be okay, not because you're a good dad, but they're going to be okay because the God of the universe, he loves them and cares far more for them than I do. And so, so legitimately, when we moved, I had lunch with Travis Fink, our Sertoma campus pastor. And I remember getting emotional at that time, because I was just like, what if I've screwed up my kids? Like, what if? But the truth in that is, Brian, you either believe it or you don't, that God cares more, that God's just going to bring you guys through. And so, again, doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but that faith is there, that, we totally understand that God he's got good plans for us. And so that's kind of how we've coped, for lack of a better word, walked through this last year.
Well, I'm pretty glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here for the most part, except for these podcasts.
Hey, man, the stipend I'm giving you is for my personal finances.
Right. I'm super excited about that part.
Man. No, I really am thankful you're here. And kind of in closing, so there's a lot in that, right? A lot of like in the message that we could probably listen to every day and read Colossians 2 every single day and buy some Colossium. Buy some of that, cozy up with it, and even listen to this Cut for Time, because I think there's a lot of things that weren't in the message that are really good too. All of that's great, but what's one big lesson or takeaway you'd hope for people to have when listening to the combo of this podcast and message? Like, what's something that you're like, man, just like carry this no matter what?
Yeah. I think for people, I would say for people to walk away from this message, from this podcast, with an understanding that answering a question isn't what it means to be a Christian. Like, there is more. God's got more for you. There's and in the message, I talked a lot about some hard things, right? But God's got joy for you. He knows better. He understands better. He offers something greater. And so for people to walk away with, okay, maybe I can answer the question. Does that really mean I'm a follower of Jesus? Does that really mean I'm a Christian? I think it's okay for us to be wrestling with that. And I think we should be wrestling with it.
Sure.
And if we're not wrestling with it, then it might just be a social thing that we do.
Yeah. Even just the question to ask yourself, like, am I just answering that question?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I just go to church because I've always gone to church? Do I just sing the songs even if I don't necessarily believe the words I'm singing?
Yeah. And even find someone to wrestle with that with, or wrestle with God with. Like, I think people sometimes get trapped in, because once you feel that or think that, man, that's a secret you'd rather hold on to than even.
Yeah. Who do I trust enough to tell that to, that they won't judge me?
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly in, let's face it, in a society in the upper Midwest that is still more church going. It's, still more, quote, Christian than other parts of the country, other parts of the world.
Oh, sure.
And so there maybe would be a worry there. Man, who's another Christian I can tell this to and they won't judge me for it? But that's a really good thought, to make sure that you bring in somebody else to that conversation.
Man, that's awesome. Well, Brian, thanks for taking the time today.
Hey, man.
It's been incredible. We talked about everything from your workout habits
to our new podcast coming out.
2020. Be sure to
the Bonnie and Clyde podcast.
I'm sure you'll hear about it on the Today Show or at a Justin Bieber concert.
Big deal.
He'll talk about it.
I didn't want to say anything,
but it's been an honor chatting with you today. Seriously, thank you so much for sitting down. Great message, and you can check out the full message at IamEmbrace.com, or even right here on the podcast. It's the podcast before this one, podcast episode before this one. You can take a listen there. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can get conversations like this and the messages, get it notified right away, right when they come out. And make sure to join us on this Sunday at a campus, whether you're in Sioux Falls or in St. Croix in Minnesota there. You can join us at a campus there. We're going to dive into part 3 of our series, and that'll be with, actually, Brian, you brought him up, Travis Fink from our Sertoma campus pastor. He's going to be preaching, talking about chapter 3 and some things he's noticed there and underlined there, going through the same story. And we'll have another Cut for Time episode around this time next week too. It's going to be amazing. I know Austin even talked about how Travis Fink, he just can't even wait for the message, because Colossians chapter 3 is one of his favorites. So you do not want to miss that. Brian, do you want to give a shout out for 57th Street? Have you thought, this is a big moment. You could do anything right now.
To just say, what up, 57th? Hey, come this week, come this Sunday, and next Monday night, 57th, we got summer nights. And
oh my gosh.
We're doing something called the Chicken Olympics. It's going to be amazing.
I have about 5 different ideas of what that is.
It's going to be amazing, but it's going to be a family night, games for family. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Oh, man.
Let's do it.
So next Monday night.
Next Monday night. What's
that date?
That date would be in June.
Because if people listen to this.
The 5th. June 10th.
June 10th, Monday night.
If you're listening to this on the 11th, you missed
it. Sorry. Oh, man. Well, that's all for today, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.